A few months ago, my friend Yoko and I went to a girl's house for a sleepover. I don't know the girl very well. Her name is Emmy, and she was an old friend of Yoko's. They went to the same school when they were kids. Emmy was strange. She was very quiet and seldom said anything. Her parents went out for the night, and we were left alone in the house. We got changed into our pajamas and sat around trying to tell ghost stories. The problem was we didn't know very many, and the ones that we did were kinda lame. All of a sudden, Emmy perked up. "I know a good website," she said. She opened up her laptop and clicked on one of the bookmarks. We gathered around her and looked at the website. It had a lot of scary stories from all over the world, including Japan. Emmy scrolled down the page while we stared at the monitor. Yoko pointed to one of the stories. "What's this one?" she asked. For a moment, Emmy's face changed into a serious frown. "You're not supposed to read that one," she said. "It's dangerous." "This whole website is creepy," I said. "Is this supposed to be for kids?" asked Yoko. "No," Emmy replied in a serious tone. "It's definitely not for kids. Some of the stories and games are really dangerous, like this one." She clicked on the link for one story. It seemed very dangerous. There was a picture of a woman with long dark hair, but her face was disturbing. It made me sick to look at it. The text said, "The person who wrote this story is not human. You're not supposed to listen to this story," said Emmy. "So let's not listen," replied Yoko. "Yeah, let's just go to bed," I said. I had a strange feeling about this site. I mean, where did they get all these weird stories from, and why did they collect them? Who would even make a site like this? There was something very unsettling about the whole thing. Emmy didn't take any notice of us. She pressed play on the video, and we heard the start of the story. As soon as I heard that weird voice, it freaked me out. I put my hands over my ears and left the room. Yoko followed me. We waited in the bathroom until it was over. I can't remember what the story was about, but I do recall that it was very short. It seemed more like a poem than a story, but it didn't rhyme. When we came back in, Emmy had a strange look on her face. "See, nothing happened," she said. Not long after that, we decided to go to bed. We were very sleepy. Emmy got into her bed, and I lay down on the futon beside Yoko. We turned off the lights and went to sleep. I always have trouble sleeping when I stay at someone's house. In the middle of the night, I was awoken by a strange sound. After a minute or so, I realized it was Emmy. She was making small noises in her sleep, like mm, mm, mm. It sounded as if she was having a bad dream. I shook Yoko to wake her up. "Maybe Emmy shouldn't have read that story before going to bed," she mumbled. I tried to go back to sleep, but Emmy moans became louder. Then she started talking in her sleep. "How did you find—" she muttered. I nudged Yoko, and we both lay there and listened to her. "How did you know?" she muttered. "I do not think sleep talking very tone." That was clearly. I said, "You are facing over there still, but I thought kinda happened already is Yoko." "Must be a weird nightmare," said Yoko. Just as she said that, Emmy suddenly got up out of her bed. The way she moved was jerky like a puppet. When I saw that, a cold chill ran down my spine. Emmy had her back to us. Her long black hair was covering her face. She just stood there, facing her bed, moaning softly, slowly, very slowly. She began to turn around. Just then, Yoko flew into a panic. "That's not Emmy," she hissed. Emmy is still slowly turning. Yoko was staring at Emmy, her eyes wide in fright. I didn't want to look, but I couldn't turn away. I was trembling uncontrollably. In the dim light, I could make out Emmy's face as she turned. It was Emmy's face, but somehow it wasn't. Her skin was pale and her eyes bugged out abnormally. Her mouth was distorted and twisted into an evil grimace. It wasn't Emmy. It was as if her face had been mixed with the face of somebody else, as if someone else was pretending to Emmy. In a voice that didn't sound human, she whispered, "I want to know how." I don't remember what happened after that. I think Yoko and I passed out. When I woke up in the morning, Yoko was laying on the futon beside me. In the bed there was just discarded pair of pajamas. There was no sign of Emmy anywhere. We went downstairs, but the house was empty. We were really freaked out, and the events of the night before were fresh in our minds. Yoko and I grabbed our bags and left as fast as we could. We tried to call Emmy on her mobile, but it was out of range. We tried again and again that afternoon, but it was always out of range. Later that evening, we called her home phone, and her mom answered. She said she didn't know where Emmy was either. Yoko and I became more and more scared. We texted all of our friends, but none of them had heard from Emmy. It was like she had dropped off the face of the earth. Emmy's parents went to the police and filed a missing persons report. They started a search for Emmy. Most people thought she had run away from home. Nobody could find any trace of her. The police came to question myself and Yoko, but there was nothing much we could tell them. We both knew Emmy didn't run away from home. One day Yoko came over to my house. We got on my laptop and searched the internet for that scary website. Emmy had been reading. With trembling fingers, Yoko clicked on the link. A notice came on the screen. This story has been removed. It read, "Do not try to find this scary story. It is too dangerous." We searched through the site, but we couldn't find it. Ever since then, I've had trouble sleeping. I'm scared that when I wake up, I won't be here anymore. I had a dream last night. It was the kind that seems real right up to the point where you wake up. Some things were strange about it. Certain things were really strange about it. But it never occurred to me that it might not actually be happening. I'm still not prepared to say that it didn't happen. I'm not spiritual and I don't really understand stuff like that. I just feel like I've been somewhere and now I'm back. And I know something really happened when I woke up, and I think while I was asleep too. I went to bed last night with a strange feeling. We all remember times when we felt like we were being watched, but this was more than that. I felt like there was someone there with me, but still, I couldn't keep from falling asleep. I don't exactly remember the beginning of the dream. The first thing I remember was starting at my house and walking. I was just walking down the road. All of my neighbors' houses were gone. I was just on a long, empty road. There was no one around but me. I don't remember what I had been doing at my house before, but I may have been there a while before I started walking. I just don't recall. I just recall feeling a strong urge to walk. I felt okay walking down that road. It was cold, dark, and I felt a little lost, but I wasn't afraid. Not like I had been in my room. I don't know how long I was on that road. It felt like a long time. I mean, like days long. But I never felt tired, and I just wanted to keep walking. The road changed after a while. It had been straight and nondescript the whole time, but eventually I reached a bend and a fork in the road. When I reached the fork, I wasn't alone anymore. A familiar voice called out to me from the side of the road. "It's good to see you," the voice whispered. "I'm just sorry to see you here." I turned to face the voice, knowing who I would see. It was an old friend from my childhood, someone I haven't seen in years. He looked just a little different from how I remembered him, but not much. He was older than when I saw him last, obviously, but he seemed at least a few years younger than me somehow. Even though we're supposed to be the same age, he was also very pale, unbelievably white in fact, and he had deep circles around his eyes that were solid blue, as were his lips. "What are you doing here?" I asked. "I'm here to warn you," he replied. Naturally, I was all ears. "There's a man in your house right now," he explained. "What do you mean? There's someone in my house?" "I was just there, I think." I didn't actually know how long ago I had been there. I wasn't sure how long I had been walking. "You don't understand," my friend stammered with apparent urgency. He's really in your house right now. I had no idea what he was talking about, but I was curious. Who is he? I asked him. He's the Cold Man. He comes to people at night when they're afraid. The Cold Man? I'd never heard of anyone like that before, so I wanted to know more. So I asked, what does he do? He awaits to be noticed, then he makes you move. You move that chill you feel on your back when something really scares you. That's not just nerves. That's him standing behind you. What for, I wonder? What does he do once you notice him? My friend looked down and away. He wouldn't answer that question. Just don't let him in, he cautioned. What do you mean? He can be close forever, my friend explained. He'll walk around your house at night, even stand in your room while you're asleep, like he's in yours right now. He can know where you are. He can even be looking at you right now. But he won't find you unless you let him. How does he find you? I mean, how do you let him? My friend looked to the other side of the road like he was worried that something might overhear. He leaned in very close and whispered, if you see him, if you hear him, or if you ever start to feel suddenly very cold, don't move. Don't talk to him. Don't acknowledge him. Don't ever let him in. I don't understand, I admitted. How do I get rid of him? You can't, my friend replied in a small, shrouded voice. Look, I'm out of time. Out of time, I repeated, not sure what he meant exactly. My friend shook his head. His eyes were wide and he was shivering off in the distance. I noticed a dark figure creeping behind him, but something kept me from speaking. My time is up, he stammered. Just whatever you do, don't let him in. Whatever you do, don't answer it. Something pulled my friend into the darkness, and suddenly I couldn't see him anymore. Before I could follow after him, though I was startled awake by a loud noise, I was sitting in my room fully dressed with my shoes on. I could swear I wasn't dressed when I went to bed. My shoes and legs were covered in dust. My feet were sore, and I could hear ringing noise right next to me. In the confusion of waking up from such a vivid dream, I didn't immediately recognize it. I felt so cold. Then I looked down and saw my phone. That was the source of the ringing. Remembering my friend's words, I didn't answer it. Eventually it stopped ringing. The room was cold as ice. The feeling that I was being watched was strong, as it had when I had fallen asleep. I could hear something moving inside my closet, but I dared not move. I just closed my eyes and waited. Eventually I heard footsteps walking away, still from inside the closet. It was as if they were walking down some unseen hallway. Though my closet is small and I couldn't see anything unusual in there, when the footsteps got far enough away, the colt lifted. He didn't get in this time. If my dream was true, if the thing in my closet was who I think it was, I must never let him in. I think he'll be back tonight, though. That's when he's supposed to come, as my friend told me. I don't know what happened to my friend, but I just hope people will remember his warning. If you start to feel cold while reading this, don't be alarmed. If you hear something in your house, just ignore it. You can't afford to let him in. Don't let the Cold Man in. Every child fears under the bed. If they don't, they fear the closet, or maybe that little crack in the almost closed door. Scientists know that children are more perceptive. They see things adults don't. They aren't yet tethered into only accepting what society wants them to accept. They see what's truly there. They see the monsters. If you were to borrow a child's eyes and see through them for a night, you'd go insane. To be able to see what you only dimly remember, burrowing into your covers while wearing those train pajamas, hoping to God you can barely compare that it doesn't see you back, would drive an adult crazy, because adults forget the rules. 1. Cover yourself. If you can't see it, it can't see you, even if it makes it harder to breathe. Don't make a noise. Every whimper can lead to destruction. don't move, it attracts their attention. And 4. Only light can make them go away. Bright light flashlights make it worse. Teens are caught in the middle. They still feel what's there, but they cannot see, and they forget the rules. Why do you think there are so many insomniacs typing at their computers, subconsciously praying the light from their monitor will be enough to keep them away? It's not. Now look behind you with a child's eyes. Try not to scream. My grandma fell down last year and had to spend time in a nursing home. While she was gone, I was cleaning up old shit she had accumulated around the house so she could get around better, and Mom and I could find important papers. I found an old, not really old, like 80s or 90s, black and white slide. It was of some guy laying in a coffin, dead of course. I thought it was creepy because he looked like me. I asked Mom if she knew who it was. She said, "It's you." She was joking. Then she looked at it under her eyes and got huge. She started crying and hugged me and said she was sorry she made that joke. I said, "It doesn't look like anyone but me, does it?" She said, "No, it really doesn't." Grandma doesn't remember anything about the slide. I still have it. I shit you not, it looks like me. Just like me. The images we see in the mirror are the pure incarnates of evil. They are only allowed to exist in the area reflected in the glass. To them, life is a never-ending hell, rotting away in the same room day after day. The only refuge from this purgatory is death, and the only way for them to die, sad to say, is if you die. Fortunately, they are bound by a code. You are their master, and they must mirror your every movement and expression. To do otherwise would break the unbreakable law, unrevealing the space-time continuum. However, the loophole is, and it can only be triggered by you, the master, is to force them into error, is to free them from their contract. After you let them out of your view, you're on your own. Know this. When you watch them, they're watching you back. They're watching, and they're thinking.